They say money can change people, but I never imagined it could erase a lifetime of love, loyalty, and family overnight. The day my father died, I thought my world had ended. But it wasn't death that destroyed me. It was betrayal, a betrayal that came wearing lipstick, pearls, and my father's wedding ring. I'm Emily Carter, and this is the story of how my stepmother stole everything my father left for me, and how I took it all back, every single thing. Before we start this story, take a second. Subscribe to my channel if you love dramatic real-life revenge stories like this. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? Because what you're about to hear could happen to anyone. My father, Richard Carter, was a name that echoed through every business hall in Chicago. Carter Enterprises, a multi-million-dollar company that built its fortune in real estate, tech, and energy. But to me, he wasn't just a CEO. He was my hero. The man who taught me how to ride a bike, how to face failure, and how to fight for what's right. He used to say, "Emily, money means nothing if you lose your soul earning it." We lived in a large stone mansion outside the city. It wasn't just a house. It was history, filled with memories of my late mother, who passed when I was only 10. For years, it was just the two of us. Father and daughter against the world. He never remarried. Until her name was Vanessa Monroe. Elegant, sophisticated, beautiful in the kind of way that made people stop and stare. She met my father at a charity gala, smiling as if she'd known him forever. Within months, they were inseparable. And within a year, she moved into our home. With a suitcase full of perfume, secrets, and intentions I couldn't yet see. I wanted to like her. I really did. But something about her felt, well, maybe it was the way she looked at me, not with affection, but calculation. Or maybe it was how quickly she became involved in my father's company affairs. She'd sit beside him in his office, whispering suggestions, correcting him in front of board members, and slowly, gently, taking over decisions that weren't hers to make. When I tried to warn my father, he'd just smile and say, "Emily, you're just not used to sharing me yet." But deep down, I knew Vanessa wasn't sharing him. She was consuming him. My father began to change. He seemed more tired, more distracted. His laughter, the one that used to fill the mansion halls, started fading. Vanessa encouraged him to take more rest, to delegate stressful responsibilities. And slowly she isolated him, from friends, from colleagues, even from me. I noticed documents disappearing from his office, financial meetings happening without me, and Vanessa's signature appearing where it never should have been. One night, I confronted her. "Why are you so interested in my father's will?" I asked, standing by the staircase. She smiled, a cold smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, Emily," she said sweetly, "I'm just making sure his legacy is protected." Her tone sent chills down my spine. It was a cold February morning when my father's heart gave out. The doctors said it was peaceful, quick, but nothing about that day felt peaceful. As I stood by his casket, watching the only family I had being lowered into the earth, Vanessa stood beside me in a black designer dress, dabbing her eyes with a silk handkerchief. Not a single tear fell. After the funeral, she invited everyone back to the mansion, my home. And for a few days, I tried to believe we'd find comfort in grief. Until the lawyer called. I'll never forget the way the room felt that day. The air so heavy, You could hear every breath, every heartbeat. My father's lawyer, Mr. Dawson, looked pale as he opened the folder. His eyes met mine for a moment, almost apologetic. He began reading. And the more he read, the more my heart stopped. Everything, the company, the properties, the accounts, had been transferred to Vanessa. I was left with a small trust fund for personal development. A fraction of what was once meant for me. I stood there, frozen. This couldn't be real. My father loved me. He would never do this. Mr. Dawson, there must be a mistake, I said, my voice trembling. He avoided my eyes. I'm sorry, Emily. This is the most recent version of his will. Vanessa smiled, a soft, victorious smile, and that was the moment I knew. She had changed everything. Overnight, I lost everything. The house, the cars, the company access. She even changed the locks before I could collect my things. I remember standing outside the gate in the rain, clutching a single suitcase, as the mansion lights flickered behind her silhouette. She looked down at me from the balcony, a glass of champagne in her hand. Don't take it personally, dear, she said. Your father just wanted what's best for the company. And then she closed the door. That night, I sat in my car until sunrise. No money, no family, no future. But as the first rays of dawn broke over the skyline, I made myself a promise. If she thought she'd destroyed me, she was wrong. I would rebuild everything she stole, and when I was done, I'd make sure Vanessa Monroe never slept peacefully again. I didn't have much left that day. No mansion, no company, no trust in anyone but myself. I had only one thing. A fire burning inside me. Hotter than grief, stronger than fear. They say when you hit rock bottom, you either break or rise. I chose to rise. I moved into a small apartment downtown. 1 bedroom, a kitchen that barely worked, and rent that nearly swallowed my tiny trust fund. I walked the streets of Chicago thinking about everything I had lost. The mansion, my father's office, my friends, my life. And yet, I never cried. Not for long. Because I knew Vanessa Monroe had taken everything, and she deserved to be exposed. I started small, really small. I sold my jewelry, heirlooms my father had given me, to pay rent. I took temp jobs at cafes and office cleaning companies. Every day I listened, I watched, I learned. Even in my lowest moments, I plotted. I realized I couldn't do this alone. Vanessa had friends in high places, lawyers, accountants, board members who would lie without blinking. I needed people who had nothing to gain from loyalty to her. One evening, in a quiet bar downtown, I met her. Well, not her, but someone who hated her as much as I did. Tom Reynolds, former CFO at Carter Enterprises, fired the day after my father died. He told me things that made my blood boil. Secret accounts, hidden contracts, fake investments, all to funnel money to Vanessa. I listened. I asked questions. And slowly, a plan started to form. I had grown up in Carter Enterprises, but being a boss and rebuilding a company from zero were two very different things. I studied everything. Market trends, competitors. Vanessa's every move, hidden weaknesses in her new empire. I spent nights in the small apartment, laptop on my knees, charts, graphs, and spreadsheets filling my tiny kitchen table. I watched her press releases, social media posts, even listened to employee whispers. And one thing became clear. Vanessa's empire was strong, but fragile. It was built on lies and borrowed power. Not vision, not passion. I smiled for the first time in months. She had no idea the storm that was coming. Revenge isn't impulsive. It's precise, calculated, patient. And my first move? Hit her where it hurt, her reputation. I contacted journalists anonymously, sharing evidence of her manipulation within Carter Enterprises. I leaked subtle hints, enough to make board members suspicious. I didn't attack her directly. Not yet. I wanted her to sweat, to panic, to reveal her true colors. And it worked. Within weeks, I watched from afar as cracks started appearing in her empire. Board members whispered, lawyers doubted, employees hesitated. Vanessa, confident in her power, didn't see the trap forming. While she was busy playing queen in the mansion, I was quietly reclaiming pieces of my father's business. I started a small investment firm, just me, Tom, and 2 other loyal allies. We found failing properties that Vanessa had taken over and bought them quietly. No fanfare, no announcements, just slow, deliberate reclaiming. I remember the first one vividly, a small tech startup my father had invested in, now mismanaged by Vanessa's hand-picked CEO. I approached the real founder, offered help, and within months, the startup was back under control of the true Carter family vision. The feeling? Indescribable. It was the first taste of justice. Sweet, quiet, unstoppable. Revenge isn't clean, it's messy, and every step reminded me of the betrayal I had endured. Vanessa, of course, noticed the cracks. She called me. "Emily," she purred over the phone, "why are you still meddling in things that aren't yours?" Her voice was venom wrapped in silk. I stayed calm. "I'm just cleaning up. Dad's legacy," I said. She laughed, cold, evil. "You'll never touch me. You're nothing without me." And that's when I realized she needed to be taught a lesson she would never forget. The months passed. I became a ghost in the business world. Silent, unnoticed, yet always moving. I acquired failing properties. I secured investors who believed in me, not Vanessa. I built alliances with her competitors. I exposed small lies of her past, quietly undermining her trustworthiness, and slowly, very slowly, the empire she had stolen began slipping from her hands. I remember one night, standing on the rooftop of my tiny office, looking at the city lights. I whispered to myself, "Everything she took, I will take back. Every last penny, every last lie, every last smug smile." And for the first time since my father died, I felt alive. Vanessa Monroe thought she was untouchable. Her smile, her designer dresses, her perfect Instagram posts, they all painted the image of power. But behind the curtains, cracks were forming. Emily watched from the shadows. Every meeting, every boardroom conversation, every phone call. Vanessa had grown careless, arrogant even. She laughed too loudly in front of investors, dismissed loyal employees, and ignored warnings about her reckless decisions. And Emily had all the ammunition she needed. Emily began with subtle whispers in the right places. A few journalists received anonymous tips. A board member received evidence of Vanessa misappropriating funds. Social media accounts posted hints of her lies, carefully, anonymously. The first strike wasn't loud, but it planted seeds of doubt. Vanessa noticed immediately. She stormed into board meetings, demanded loyalty pledges, and even questioned her own assistants. But the more she pushed, the more the cracks showed. Emily had discovered Vanessa's past misdeeds, things she thought were buried, emails, contracts, and old financial records, all exposing Vanessa's manipulations in prior companies she had worked for. Emily compiled everything into a single dossier. Then she released it anonymously to investors, employees, and a few select journalists. The fallout was immediate. Vanessa's trusted allies turned skeptical. Investors called meetings. Employees began to talk. Emily watched the storm brew with satisfaction. Vanessa called an emergency board meeting at Carter Enterprises, confident she could put out the fire. Emily, still anonymous, had already planted seeds of doubt among board members. She watched through contacts how hesitation spread. And then it happened. One of Vanessa's closest allies publicly questioned her decisions. Vanessa's face turned pale. Words she had mastered, sharp, confident, commanding, faltered. For the first time, the woman who had laughed at Emily's downfall felt fear. Emily knew that to truly reclaim her father's empire, Vanessa had to be humiliated publicly. She arranged a press leak, financial mismanagement, manipulated contracts, and insider fraud, all traced back to Vanessa. When the story hit, the world watched. Board members and employees were shocked. Vanessa Monroe, once untouchable, was now exposed. Photos of her smiling with investors while secretly siphoning funds circulated online. Her credibility, carefully built over years, crumbled overnight. While Vanessa panicked in the public eye, Emily quietly moved in to reclaim what was rightfully hers. She bought back small properties she had previously acquired anonymously. She regained control of mismanaged subsidiaries. She made strategic alliances with former employees loyal to her father. Within months, the empire that had been stolen began returning to Emily, brick by brick. Every new acquisition, every board meeting win, every positive article, it was more than business. It was revenge served with precision. Emily didn't just want the empire back. She wanted Vanessa to feel the helplessness she had caused Emily to feel. Emails were sent, subtly reminding Vanessa of mistakes. Former employees started questioning loyalty. Competitors began circling, exploiting the cracks. Vanessa started losing control. She screamed at her assistants, berated loyal friends, and even considered selling parts of the empire to cover embarrassment. All the while, Emily stayed calm, patient, and calculated. Finally, it was time. Emily arranged a meeting with Vanessa at the old family mansion, the place that had once been hers. Vanessa arrived in her designer heels, hair perfect, makeup immaculate. She smiled, falsely friendly. "Emily, how nice to see you again." Emily didn't flinch. "I see you've been busy, losing everything you stole." Vanessa's smile faltered. That's not true. I've worked hard." Emily cut her off. "You worked hard to destroy my life. I worked harder to rebuild it. And now Everything you took is mine again." Vanessa's face went white. She had never imagined Emily could rise from nothing. She had never imagined Emily could outsmart her at every turn. And in that moment, Emily realized revenge wasn't just about taking back what's yours. It was about showing them they were never in control. Within weeks, Emily had completely regained control of Carter Enterprises. Vanessa was left humiliated, powerless, and exposed in every circle that mattered. No screaming, no violence, just strategy, patience, and relentless determination. Emily looked at the city skyline from her father's office, the same office Vanessa had once occupied with arrogance. She smiled. Her father's legacy was safe. Vanessa Monroe? A cautionary tale. Revenge had been sweet, yes. But more than that, it was a lesson. For Vanessa, for the world, and for Emily herself. Power can be taken, but it can also be reclaimed. Trust can be broken, but determination can mend it. And betrayal, well, betrayal can be the spark that ignites a fire you never thought you had. Emily's empire was restored, her family's legacy preserved. And she had learned something priceless. Never underestimate the strength of someone you've wronged. Emily knew revenge isn't a single act. It's a series of moves, a game of patience, strategy, and precision. Vanessa had made one fatal mistake. She underestimated her. Months of observation, meticulous planning, and rebuilding the empire had brought Emily to this moment. Everything was in place. Allies loyal to Emily, Vanessa's weaknesses exposed, the media watching silently, and the business world ready for the inevitable fallout. This wasn't just about taking back what was hers. This was about shattering Vanessa's illusion of power forever. Emily requested a board meeting at Carter Enterprises, knowing Vanessa would attend. She walked into the room calmly, dressed in her father's favorite tailored suit, a symbol of authority, resilience, and inherited power. Vanessa, as expected, strutted in like a queen. But today, she was entering Emily's battlefield. Emily began. "Vanessa, thank you for joining. I'd like to discuss your recent decisions regarding Carter Enterprises." Vanessa scoffed, smug. "Emily, you have no say here. This is still my company." Emily smiled, serene, almost gentle. "That's interesting, because, according to the shareholders, your management has caused massive losses. And it seems several decisions you made were fraudulent." Vanessa's smile faltered. Emily had every document, every piece of evidence, every witness ready. Emily laid it all out. Fake contracts Vanessa had signed without authorization. Misappropriated funds traced to personal accounts. Manipulated employee resignations to cover her tracks. The room went silent. Board members whispered, shocked at the scale of deceit. Vanessa's confident demeanor cracked. Her hands trembled. Her lips parted as if to speak. But no words came. And then Emily dropped the final bomb. "A majority of shareholders have already voted to remove you from all positions immediately. Effective today, Carter Enterprises is back under the rightful leadership. My leadership." Vanessa's face went pale. She tried to speak. Emily interrupted softly. You stole my life, my inheritance, and my father's legacy. Today, you are powerless." Emily wasn't done. She wanted the world to see Vanessa's fall. Press conferences were held the next day. Emily revealed Vanessa's mismanagement, her lies, and fraudulent schemes. Investors were briefed, employees reassured, and the media captured every moment. Vanessa was humiliated, her empire crumbling in front of cameras, social media, and industry insiders. And yet Emily remained composed, calm, in control. The woman who had once lost everything now stood victorious, dignified, strategic, unstoppable. With Vanessa gone, Emily focused on rebuilding. She restored Carter Enterprises to its former glory, stronger, smarter, and more resilient than ever. She reconnected with loyal employees, reinvested in the projects her father had started, expanded the company internationally, created systems to prevent anyone from ever stealing from the family again. It wasn't just a business victory, it was personal justice realized. Vanessa finally tried to approach Emily one last time, desperate, humiliated, and pleading. "Emily, please, I didn't mean for it to go this far. We could negotiate." Emily looked at her, calm, unwavering. "Negotiation? You stole my father's life, his work, and tried to erase me. There's nothing left to negotiate." Vanessa's eyes filled with tears, rage, and disbelief. Emily's words cut deeper than any lawsuit or public humiliation could. "You taught me one thing. Never trust someone who smiles while destroying your world. And now, you are exactly where you belong. Powerless, exposed, forgotten." Vanessa turned and left, finally understanding that Emily was untouchable. Sitting in her father's office, Emily looked at the skyline. She had rebuilt the empire, reclaimed her inheritance, and watched the woman who had betrayed her fall. And yet, revenge taught her more than satisfaction. Strength comes from resilience, not just opportunity. Patience is more powerful than rage. True justice doesn't need chaos. It needs strategy, Emily whispered to herself. My father's legacy is safe, and those who betray always meet the consequences of underestimating the wrong person. The empire fully restored, Emily finally felt at peace. Vanessa's shadow no longer loomed over her life. The betrayal that once shattered her had forged her into someone unstoppable. Emily had learned that losing everything didn't mean the end. It was the beginning of something greater, stronger, and unbreakable. As she looked at her father's portrait, she smiled softly. Dad, I did it. Everything you built is safe. And I'm finally free. Emily's revenge was complete. Vanessa Monroe lost everything. Carter Enterprises was stronger than ever, and Emily learned the ultimate truth. Betrayal can destroy, but determination can rebuild and surpass anything. The moral: never underestimate someone you've wronged, and never let betrayal define your life. True power comes from resilience, intelligence, and patience. After the chaos and triumph, the city felt different to Emily. The skyscrapers, the streets, the boardrooms, all the places that had once been battlegrounds, now seemed quiet, almost peaceful. She walked through the halls of Carter Enterprises, greeted by smiling employees who had stayed loyal through the storm. It was no longer about proving herself. It was about stewardship, protecting her father's legacy and honoring the lessons he had taught her. Revenge had been necessary, but it hadn't healed the deeper wounds of betrayal. Emily spent time reflecting on her father's guidance, her mother's memory, and the strength she had discovered in herself. She reconnected with a few family friends who had been kept at a distance by Vanessa's manipulation. They celebrated the triumph, but also reminded Emily of a truth she had known all along. Strength isn't measured by power alone, but by the ability to rise, forgive oneself, and move forward. One evening, Emily found an old letter tucked in her father's study, one he had written for her on her 21st birthday. Emily, life will test you in ways you cannot imagine. Trust wisely, love deeply, and never let anyone steal your light. You are stronger than you know, and the world will recognize it just as I do. Reading the letter, she realized that every trial, every betrayal, every sleepless night had prepared her to honor her father's words. Not all bonds were lost. Emily reached out to old friends and loyal colleagues, rebuilding relationships that Vanessa had tried to sever. She helped former employees regain positions or start new ventures. She supported charitable projects her father had begun. She nurtured trust, loyalty, and respect rather than fear. Her empire was restored, but her heart was stronger, wiser, and more compassionate than before. Vanessa Monroe had vanished from the public eye. No social media posts, no press statements, no boardroom appearances. Her empire had crumbled, and her reputation was ruined. Emily had ensured she would never have power over anyone again, not with wealth, influence, or manipulation. And yet, Emily felt no malice. She had proven herself. Vanessa's downfall was a consequence of her own choices. Justice had been served. Sitting in her father's office, Emily reflected on the journey. Betrayal tests your strength. It reveals who you truly are. Patience is power. Impulsive revenge only destroys the seeker. Justice can be quiet or loud. Strategy always outlasts brute force. Resilience shapes legacy. The strongest foundations survive storms. She had learned that revenge isn't just about taking back what's yours. It's about reclaiming your life, your dignity, and your future. Emily walked through the mansion that once belonged to her father and once was under Vanessa's control. Now it felt like home again. She smiled, not in triumph over another, but in triumph over circumstance. She had rebuilt, reclaimed, and restored everything that mattered. And most importantly, she had reclaimed herself. The city lights twinkled outside, the skyline reflecting possibilities, power, and hope. She whispered to the empty room, "Dad, I did it. Everything you built is safe, and I'm finally free." Betrayal can shatter lives. Greed can destroy families. But resilience, strategy, and patience can turn even the darkest moments into triumph. Emily's story wasn't just about revenge. It was about courage, rebuilding, and showing the world that no one can steal your legacy if you refuse to surrender it. And as she looked out at the city, she knew one thing for certain. True power doesn't come from what others take from you. It comes from what you are willing to fight for, reclaim, and protect. Emily Carter had endured betrayal, climbed from nothing, and ensured pure revenge satisfaction. The empire was hers again. Vanessa's lies were exposed. And justice, patient, calculated, and unstoppable, had been served. The inheritance that vanished was reclaimed. And Emily's story was a testament to the strength of persistence, intelligence, and unwavering courage.